Hi guys, it's Elizabeth. I'm over here in my art loft, and I had a request probably over a week ago, to do a process jelly print. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. I had a really good session with my jelly plate yesterday, and these are some of the things I came up with. I'm going to try to recreate this one. This one has black and a shiny red, a metallic red in the little spaces, and then the black is created because it's a black piece of paper, and I used my homemade stencil on it. So that one was the first one that came off the jelly plate. I put black on the plate, removed some of it, let it dry, put on the shiny red, and then didn't let that dry, and then laid the stencil down and put this over the top of it, rubbed it really well, and took it off. And if you're wondering about my fingers, they get so chapped in the winter time that they really hurt if I get paint in there. So I've bandaged them up just to remind me not to use those two fingers. The rest of them seem to be okay. Anyway, so there was that one. And then after I did that, I just laid a piece of this tissue down. This is 45-pound tracing paper, or it might be the lighter stuff. I'll find out for you and put that in the description if you're interested. And you can see that I got still a lot more paint off of the jelly plate. So I'll show you how this is done in just a minute. Then when I was done with my stencil, I took my stencil off and I laid it on this piece of what did I say that was? Tracing paper. Gosh. And on the back of the stencil, it evidently had some green on it. So when I laid it on here, the part that I had down on the jelly plate had some green on it. So when I laid it on here, it just came right off onto this sheet. So I have a really nice little grid with some blues in the middle and some greens and the red and blacks that I already had on the jelly plate. Then, to clean up the jelly plate, I used some of my off-white and did a nice thin coat, and I got some really nice, you can see the edges of those. I don't know if you can tell that they're shiny, but the red in there is shiny, and everything else is matte, so it gives a nice contrast on that. So I'm going to try to recreate that. I don't need this sheet. And we'll get started. Yes, I should have brought my printing papers over instead of leaving them over there. So just a moment. This isn't the normal place I print. These. Come on. Okay. Do I need one more? No. Now I have my papers, so I'm ready. So the first thing we need to do is lay down a layer of black. And I just use the, can you see that okay? Oh, it's shining. I'm sorry, the light's going to shine into that a little bit, but once we get some paint on there, it won't be so bad. Just use the Basics acrylic black from, I got it at Michael's, I think. It was on, oh crap. I did forget to remove my plastic, so let's do that first because you can't print from the plastic like you can from the jelly plate. Come here, black. When you get your jelly plate, it comes with plastic on each side, and you just remove one side and put it onto a piece of acrylic. That's what this is around here. And then it has the plastics that you, when you're finished with it for the night, you should close it up with the plastic. Now, I did not do that last night because, I don't know, I was brain dead or something. And so I'm not positive it's going to print like it normally does, as well as it normally does. But I'm sure we'll get something. So I put a little glob of paint, about that much, and then I get my trusty roller and roll it out. And when I'm rolling, I want to roll in lots of different directions, because if you roll all in one direction, then you're not going to get smeared all over your plate, and then you'll also, well, it won't work as well. So it's best to roll it in lots of different directions, and you should have a nice thin layer. When I did mine yesterday, I actually had a little more than I needed on there, and I need to clean off my roller, and of course I put everything on top of where I was going to clean the roller. Okay, that'll work there. when you clean your roller, you do two things. You remove some of the total paint that you have, which is a good thing. Plus, you clean your roller off so that if you're going to change colors, you'll have a clean roller so that you won't roll black into your red or into your white or whatever. Okay, that looks about right. You can see that that's a nice thin, well, still got a shine in there, don't we? I don't know how to get that out without resetting up everything. Okay, let's look at that so that you can see what I mean about a nice thin coat. If you kind of look at that, you can see that it's got a little stickiness to it looking, but it's not slicky. And then, to make this print, I used a really technical piece of equipment. This was in the bottom of a cookie box that we got for Christmas. And my husband liked the cookies. I liked some of the cookies, but he got most of them. And I got the paper out of the bottom because the cookies were all wrapped in cellophane, so it didn't make a mess on the piece of cardboard that was in the bottom. So I just press that nicely down into my plate, and it gets black lines on it. And then I'm going over here and putting the paint over onto this piece. Now under this piece, I have two things. I have a piece of packing material. It's that foamy looking stuff. Kind of, it's not really styrofoam. Well, maybe it is styrofoam, but it's real soft. And when you're doing an offset print onto it, then you get a better look to it if you have something soft under the piece of paper that you're stamping off onto. Okay, and what I'm trying to do is to make crisscross patches so that they will, when I print it, I'll have some interest in the print instead of just all horizontal or vertical lines. So sometimes I'll go in and actually take 2 passes at it, then go and stamp off onto the other piece of paper. I also have a piece of tissue paper under here that is a print that I didn't like, so I have it so that if it goes beyond this little green piece of paper, that it will have something to stamp on instead of that packing material. Because the packing material itself, I mean, I could stamp on it too, but why? I'm not going to be able to use it in a journal or a book or anything. So I do it so that I can just have a little bit more of something else to use for fun crafting things. Yes. Let's take a little bit there. Take that the other direction. And we'll put it there. You can see how this paper is getting interesting with all the black lines and things on it. And how the plate is getting interesting because it's losing some of the paint, and where the openings are, where the lines have been made on that, that's where the red is going to show through. It does try to get stuck to the page over here sometimes, but I'm the boss, so it has to do what I say. It has to come loose from there. And I can just put down like part of the circle. I don't have to put the whole circle down, so that I can position it where I think that there's a little extra black. Like here, there's a lot of black here, and maybe that little spot there, and just get a little bit off instead of a whole circle's worth. And I don't know where to put it. I think I'll just start stamping on my tissue paper over here. Not tissue paper, it's that tracing paper I was telling you about. Okay, there we go. The hardest part of doing the jelly plate is waiting for it to dry when you need it to dry in between times. And as this is drying, which it is, it's getting drier all the time, as it's drying, then I'm getting more paint off wherever I put this cardboard thing down, because it's sticking to this instead of staying on the plate, because of course the plate itself is a little bit moist. That's why it's a nice thing to print from. because it's a jelly plate made with like Jello. I think you can make your own, but I've not looked up any of the stuff to do that. And I think I'm about finished with taking this off. Yeah, a lot of vertical lines there. Let's get rid of some of those. Put some on this. Maybe a little bit more here. And it is getting really dry. I can tell by how it sticks as I'm pressing it down into there, and how it doesn't come off so well when I'm going over to my sheet of tracing paper. Maybe one more there. The other way. Just to get a nice grid, like the grid patterns. And I think that'll do it for now. Maybe one more there. Yeah, perfect, or close enough. Okay, so if you look at this, we've got nice lights everywhere. Sorry about that. But you can see that there's grid all over it, and now we have to wait for it to dry. Well, to make it dry a little faster, some people use their heat gun, but you have to be really careful with that because you could dry out your plate some with the heat from the heat gun. So what I used to use is this. It's a cute little light up toy that used to have candy in it, which of course has been long gone, but the battery's still good, and it's a little fan. So that actually works pretty well. And isn't very noisy. But I found something over at the house today that I thought might actually work a little better. So I brought that with me, and I'm going to test it out while you guys are watching. This is a pump that is used for an exercise ball. I haven't used the exercise ball as much as I've used the pump, which actually blows air both when you're pulling it out and when you're pushing it. So it's really good for directing the air wherever you want it with the little nozzle. But this was the pump that came with the exercise ball to pump up the exercise ball, and I've probably used the pump to blow up balloons more than I've ever used the exercise ball. Although I did use it for a little while. The exercise ball, that is. It's getting pretty dry. To find out if it's dry enough, you do the old finger test, which is press your finger down. Oh, still black. I don't know, I think the fan works better because it gives a broader area. But if you only needed to dry one little part, you could use that. Okay, that one's good. So we'll give it a few more seconds. I usually use my jelly plate horizontally, so it's a little different for me to print with it like this, but there was no way that I could get this page and this and everything on this desk, because this is a kind of a stand-up desk, and the other one that I usually use is I sit down and I've got a wider area across. Okay, so we're not going to use the red now, and this is the red that I'm using. It's Lascaux Perlacryls, and it's carmine. It's really pretty metallic red. I bought a whole set of metallic colors from Lascaux at a, it was some kind of an art conference thing years and years ago, and it wasn't cheap in this size. You can see this is a whole 500 milliliters. But I tell you what, I have had so much pleasure out of using those that it was definitely worth it. So I'm not sure. They used to be sold in like 2-ounce bottles, or I guess it was 50 milliliters instead of 500 some time ago. Now you have to watch it when you're putting this on. If you're putting on a thin layer, if it starts picking up the black, then you've got it too thin, and you need to put a little more paint out there. Because if it starts picking up the black, that's all it's going to do is pick up the black, and you're not going to get your beautiful red in between the blacks. And I think, no, yep, I need a little more. See right in here where it's really thin? give me a little more of that so I get a nice coat of it. Come on, baby, don't pick that up. It's trying to. And I think I have a little divot in my plate. Okay, so we just want to roll out a nice thin layer, and that is doing some pulling apart right now that I'm not liking too. See how it's making these little bubbles in here? Can you see that? I don't know if you can or not. We want a nice thin, come on, stuff. We're going to pretend that's going to work. So now we're going to put down our stencil, which is right here. It has pretty stuff on this side too. Then we're going to put down our black piece of paper, which is what we did yesterday, right on top of that. And it's not a very wide black piece of paper, so I've got edges that I'm going to have to clean off with something else, or I'll get my fingers into it right along this edge. It's sticking out. I think I cut my paper too small. I think my paper is just 12 inches, and my plate is actually, it's supposed to be a 12 by 14 plate, and it's actually stretched a little bit as I've used it. So just be aware that that can happen. Your plate can actually get bigger if you continue to use it and roll on it. And that'll make some kind of interesting little dotted lines along the edge of that piece of paper, which isn't anything good yet. So what we're going to try to do is get all the paint out of that we can. And since this is a black piece of pastel paper, it's going to be a little thicker than the tracing paper, so it's not going to go down into there quite as easily. But you do get a lot of ink off of it. So then we're going to take the rest of that ink off using a piece of the tracing paper. And the tracing paper is nice because you can actually see it working. Look, it's going down into those places, and we're just giving it a good rub so that we can get the stuff out of those little holes there. Okay. We didn't get quite the same as we got yesterday, but it's close. There you have it. Let's see. And then I need to put this on my drying rack, which happens to be the floor, with some newspaper on it. Put it on my drying rack that's the floor with some newspaper on it. That's what I was saying. I know, sometimes you can't hear me when I'm walking away from the camera. Now I'm going to use a piece of tissue paper, tracing paper, to take my stencil off of here and put on my tracing paper to see if it will take off anything from that stencil. And we just give that a good rub. Oops, don't be peeling up. We like that color. And that almost adheres it to the tracing paper. We are letting this dry, so it doesn't matter that that gets dried while we're doing this. That's okay. So this should be pretty good. Let's let it go for it. We'll turn it over and look at it and see how it's doing. Scoot over a plate. You don't have to do this part. I mean, this is just because I liked what I got yesterday from doing this. This helps your stencil get dry, and as a result, it's taking the ink off, or the paint off of the stencil. And so that's one reason I do it, is so that if I want to use the stencil again, I'll have this, you know, the stencil will be drier. This is a homemade stencil made from a piece of, I think it's kind of like masking paper for masking paint or something like that. And it's actually two pieces of stuff. It's actually a piece of paper which is on the front, and then there's a piece of backing because it's a sticky paper on the front, and like the backing is the stuff that you would have behind a sticker. I don't know if I can get that apart to show you. Of course not. Well, we're not going to worry about that. Okay, let's pick this up while we're waiting for that. And we can see that we're getting a little bit of extra stuff peeling off that stencil. You can see where it peeled off some of the blue there. See right here? But that's interesting enough. It's got the shiny red, and then that blue stuff actually is multicolored because it had different paints on that for different times that I used that side of the stencil. And some little bits in here in the red stuff actually has little green bits in there as well as the black and the red. We don't have much, well, we have a little bit of black left on our page there. Okay, so then I waited till that dried, and it looks like it's getting pretty dry. Not quite perfect yet, but close enough. And then what was the next step? Oh, yes. Then the last thing I did was to roll it with the off-white and pick up the print that looked like this. So let's do that part. We'll move this out of the way because we don't need it. And then we'll have a space over here so that we can roll off our paint. Okay, move this into the way so we can do it. And we have this again, I use the basic acrylics. The parchment is what this one is. Okay, when I put out my paint, I try to put it out on where there's not too much going on, because sometimes it will lift more from there onto your roller than it does the rest of the place. And if it happens to do that, then it's not going to make a solid print everywhere. So I put it out the least exciting place that's on my plate. I know, that sounds, after you get one, you'll know what I mean. I never thought I'd want a jelly plate. I saw things done with it on the YouTube, and heard people talking about it, and I'm like, why would I need that? Because I have done printmaking of all kinds, and I thought, well, you know, I can get all kinds of things done. And on one day I had a 40% off coupon, and I think it was at Michael's, it may have been at Hobby Lobby, and I thought, what am I going to use this on? Because, you know, everything else that I needed or wanted was on sale. And I saw this jelly plate. It was like fate. It was like somebody put that right there in front of me to entice me to use it. So I picked it up and I took it to the cash register and I said, okay, you know, this is what I'll take. And we're using a piece of white paper for this, and it's almost big enough for the jelly plate. And what we're going to try to do is to make that new paint adhere to the paint that's on it. Yeah, I'll continue my story in a minute. Okay, so it's going to adhere to the paint that's on it, and so we have a little time to wait while it does that, and I can finish my story. Which was that I went to the cash register and got my 40% off the jelly plate. Well, it wasn't this one. This one's much more expensive than I would have paid for even with my 40% off coupon. You know, as an experiment, it was a little 5x8, 5x8, 5x7. A little 5x7 gel plate. So I bought it. Oh, it was Hobby Lobby. Look at that. Easy peasy. $14.99. So $15 and you get 40% off. That would be $6 off. It cost me $9. Plus tax, of course. It's a gel press, gel printing plate. And there is one in there. It's kind of hard to see. It looks like it's just clear stuff, but there is a jelly plate in there, which is nice and clean and pristine. And I did use it. My sister came for a week, and we played with my jelly plate. think it was 2 days. It was 2 days or 1 or 2 days over here, and she helped me try all the different ways to do things. And then I was like, But I hadn't gotten out my lovely metallic paints. So I was just using old Delta Ceramcoat paints, different colors. And the prints that we got were kind of interesting, and they were kind of pretty, and they were kind of neat, but it wasn't anything exciting. So I was like, And after she left, I tried my lovely metallic paints, and I fell in love with the things that I could get from it. I couldn't get the same kind of prints from any other printing media that I had ever done. So I have a 12 by 14 plate now that I told my husband he got me for Christmas, and I'm loving it. I'm having a great time making gel prints, and you can see that we didn't get everything, but we did get the same kind of print that we had yesterday. So you can repeat. Of course, it's not exactly the same because it's not, the black's not in the same place and the red's not in the same exact place, etc. And you really don't see much of those black lines, although a little bit, the little cross hatching we did, but we got the other prints from that made that look good. So that's how you use a jelly plate. Whenever I work on my jelly plate, I put all my prints down on the floor, and I come in the next day, and I'm like, wow, I don't remember doing that one. Look at that, it's great. That's how I feel about the jelly plate, and that's how you work on the jelly plate. I will be probably making some more prints and cleaning this up, but I'm going to go sit in my chair over there instead of standing here talking to you guys. I'm glad that you watched with me, and I hope that you check back to see what else I'm doing. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't, well, come back again and we'll do something else. Leave a comment, leave a like, whatever you like. And you guys have a great day. Have an art-filled life. Bye-bye.